Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Like when you're in the airport, so if you walk through like say I'm going I say to April, I'll be back in 40 minutes, okay? And she's like, all right, go do it. I will walk until I find a really, really busy place. Like, there's a concession stand and then there's a group of people going to Sioux Falls or Honolulu and there's just people buzzing all over the place. That's my jam. I slowly walk through and I connect to every single face in that area. And I walk slowly enough and only 1 second per face, but I make sure, sometimes I can't get them all, but I try to see every person and take my eyes away. The second I feel attachment, I'm on to the next face. The second I feel revulsion, I stay a little bit longer, but then I'm off. And what you're doing is you're seeing everything. Like if there were a terrorist attack, they would want to talk to me because I saw everyone there. And what you're doing is you're teaching yourself to see the phenomenal world but not allow concept to come up. Because the second you look at anything, you have a moment of direct perception followed by the first moment of conceptuality. And from that point on, you no longer have any access to the thing. In fact, we see something, and to exaggerate the issue, the second you look at this, okay, you've already seen it. For all you know, it's still there. Obviously, that's not the case. But as soon as you see this, you have a millisecond, 1/360th of these, of what's called direct sensory perception. And then in order for you to have any relationship with it, your mind fabricates a conceptual version of it and loses contact with the thing itself. So now you're having an interaction with a conceptually fabricated version of what you only partially saw. You immediately have an idea of what it is, what color it is, how far away from you it is, but you're not continually relating to it. You could make it so that you are, but you're, generally speaking, our first actual experience of something where we're aware of it is already an idea. We're not looking through our organs, we're looking at our mind. We're solidifying it into what's called a tunchi, or meaning generality. And as we begin to develop more and more meditative stability and clarity, we see that part of the mind operating in that way, and it becomes less and less of what we're experiencing. It's still doing its thing, but previously it was the only thing we could see through. And if you're working on the first stage of shamatha, or the second stage of shamatha, or the third stage of shamatha, those are the same principles you're going to apply in your walking meditation. So I don't mean the object, but the way that you're focusing proceeds in exactly the same way. So at a certain point, you are only working on aiming your attention and sustaining your attention and noticing when your attention is off. But once you're able to do that repeatedly, now you're working on booting up awareness of the mind and the experience. So you're paying attention to how is everything going? You're watching it happen, you're watching your mind kick up, you're aware of what's in the environment. And then at a certain point, it'll become metacognitive awareness, where you're aware of the mind being aware. But then once we've aimed our attention at an object, we have to keep it there, and that's called vichara. So vitakka is aiming, and vichara is sustaining. And when vitakka, vichara come together, the mind places and it sustains. And that's the skill we're developing through the first three stages of shamatha until they lock, and that's called samadhi. So samadhi begins when vitakka, vichara, those skills of aiming and sustaining, have been brought to a level of health. When we are doing that, we are practicing not being attached to things which arise in the periphery of our attention. And when you're outside walking, like I do this all the time. This is one of my favorite things to do if I go for a walk or if I go for a run. At a certain point, like if I'm on a long, boring stretch of sidewalk, I will find something in the distance far enough away that it's going to challenge me, and I will lock. And I will not let my eyes move if I can help it. Now, if I'm threatened, like, a cyclist comes, that's different. That's different. Then I look over there. But what you find is how willing your mind is just to look at the fence for no reason and come back. Like, hey, I think I'll just look at some stupid thing over here and come back. What? You catch, wait a minute. There's no value in me averting my eyes and looking at a stop sign. Why did I just do that? Well, you just did that because vitakka, vichara is weak. We want to get to a point where we can instantly switch focus and stay on something, instantly switch focus and not have any temptation. And so that would be like suppleness. The mind is able to lock onto that, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So quick, clean, complete placement for a minute or less is a valuable skill in meditation. It doesn't have to be long and sustained only. It's also, can you quit? Like, for example, you have 20 minutes in the morning to meditate. How many times have you found yourself 15 minutes into that 20 minutes not meditating? You never even started. I mean, can we have some truth-telling here? Anyone that you're pointing to others? Yeah, you're pointing to all these people? Yeah. So what's lacking there is the knack for sitting down, forming the intention to stabilize, placing the mind, vitakka, vichara, the whole thing's on. Some teachers have said you should sit down and within 15 seconds you should be on the object and fully placed. Other teachers said, no, you shouldn't do that. You should sit down and for 20 minutes you should go over your state of mind. Laura, but we need the microphone.
What's vitakka, vichara?
Vitakka is the aiming of the mind at an object, and vichara is once it's aimed and placed, sustaining it so that it doesn't move. It's also the term jokpa in Tibetan, which you've probably heard me say before.
What is it? What are they translated in English? What would
Directed and sustained attention. Directed attention is vitakka, or in Sanskrit, vitarka. It's to direct the attention, and sustained attention is vichara. And when vitakka, which initiates, and vichara, which sustains, are brought to their fruition, you have samadhi.
Well, I was just going to say that I wonder if what you're talking about, like these different practices, are about helping you to know when you are doing that, like developing the awareness.
Which different practices?
Well, like the walking one that you're doing. So like, so like Elena going, it doesn't have anything to do with what we're trying to do, but to me it seems like maybe it's about helping to recognize and build the awareness of, like, am I placing my mind?
Yeah, that's for sure. For sure.
Am I going away and becoming conceptual, whatever?
Yes, definitely. When you give yourself something, like, for example, say I'm out for a run and there's a stone 150 yards up that I can just barely make out. What I'm doing the whole time first of all, the second I see it, because I've done this enough, I know, okay, that's the object. There's no more dialogue permitted, none. No wiggle room. Oh, okay, I'm on that thing now. Now I put my eyes on it, and now my mind is observing. My awareness is observing whether or not my mind is going a little bit this way, a little bit that way, all the way up to the end. And it usually is right when it passes me. That's when I let go. The point there, of course, this develops placement. It's good for that. But I can already place my mind in meditation that long on an object. So it's not that I'm not increasing my placement, but I am keeping the placement activity trained into my mind throughout the day by doing that. But the real thing is quickly going into training mode. That's the key. Quickly going into training mode. Because most of the time, someone's talking to us, someone says, "Hey, how you doing?" There's no law of what we have to do other than give them the impression that we're listening. We can look at our watch, we can look at the sky, we can look at their shirt, we can look at their face. We can close our eyes as if we're really listening to them. We can act like we don't hear them.
Or a statue or something in front of us, that's not the breath. Because in the breath is very clear when you are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But when you have something, let's say that book,
Okay.
and I'm going to concentrate on that, and that's where I'm going to do the direct it, aim it, and then sustain it.
At this book.
Let's say. The problem with something like that, it's extremely easy to conceptualize. And so, but with the breath,
okay.
you're not conceptualizing other things like your to-do list, your conversations, those come in, so you can decipher between.
Wait, so the contrast is greater between if you're on your breath and then now you're doing your to-do list?
Because you're not conceptualizing about the thinking, the labeling you're gonna do about that other stuff that comes out. It's not about the breath, it's about everything else. So you're coming back to the breath. But when you have something that's an object, a rock, or something like that, how do you get yourself to not conceptualize, but stay on the same
So
thing?
when you say conceptualize, what is that?
Your relationship with it, like, oh, that's a blue color, I really like that blue color. Oh, that book, I was gonna read that book, I only read 3 chapters. You know, those storylines come up when it's not when it's
Yeah,
not breath.
I get
It's
it.
hard to differentiate, either you just,
Wait.
looking at it or
Like a
conceptualizing.
newscast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I understand what you're trying to
Yeah,
say.
so I
But-
wanna do that, but I can't do it with.
Okay.
And you cannot catch that moment. Are you thinking now, or are you still on the book, or,
Well, even if you catch it, how do you go, even if you catch it?
Everyone needs to bring their own microphone. This is the last time I'm going to provide one microphone, okay?
If you catch it, how do you go back to this, like, just the book?
Yeah, because it's too
Just
much
the
of this
rock.
book, it's too crowded, you know.
Like when you're running towards that rock, you're never thinking about the size of the rock, the shape of the rock. Oh, that rock will look really cool, like in my yard next to that pot.
That would be called distraction.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, but and you're only thinking of the rock and what it's doing, but I guess
So,
that's
okay,
my thing.
I think let me see if I can, so first of all, what am I thinking when I'm walking at the rock?
How do you
I am folding my thinking into placement. That's what meditation is. So if I'm looking at a book, it's just like when you were a kid and you used to look into the mirror and stare at yourself until you began to hallucinate and see funny shapes and demons and stuff. We all did that, didn't we? Didn't we do that? You would look, or you repeat. Yeah.
College.
Yeah, college. Sorry.
I
Or
have
you
substances.
or you repeat a word until it loses its meaning.
No.
Okay. Okay. This is just kind of stuff I used to do. All right. So that's between me and my doctor. So you're going to look at this now, and there's going to be a first flush of, oh, I have so many thoughts about this object, right? I mean, it sounds like what you two are saying, like, how am I going to do that? That's not the breath.
No, first you look at it, you're on it, but
Okay.
then the stories.
Okay, but the point isn't not to have thoughts, right? The point is that the thoughts meet the challenge of the power of your practice. So in that sense, how about if I had a little figurine made in the shape of your husband with a face like this or whatever? How can you meet that and like, whoa, this is This is going to be a challenge, but get to the point where your placement is so strong that thoughts just, it's like the radiation of your placement is so powerful that thoughts wither as soon as they try to get up. That's what you want. You don't forget, you want power in your practice, not relaxation. You're going for relaxation, forget it. Seriously, it just doesn't work that way. There are relaxation types of practices that get you ready for this, but this is what the Buddha said will cause enlightenment. You have to have power to overcome the arising of distraction, and when distraction has been overcome, you will start to see, and that's when you will achieve stream entry. It is all in the power. I didn't think that would bring up a question.
Sorry.
That's why I'm thinking of calling this the way of power. Awakening the power within.
No.
No, not really. I would never do something like that.
So when I sustain attention, I feel like I'm going into, I'm gonna call it zombie mode.
Zombie mode?
Zombie mode.
Okay, all right.
So I feel like the dullness of the everything else. So if I'm
Okay.
centering in on the feeling of the feet or the breath, it's like the rest of the world disappears. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You know, I feel like there's some sort of dulling of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I work with that? I guess
Well,
I
it depends on whether...
Or is that a problem? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it's... Well, okay, hold it. The way that... Okay, when we practice shamatha, we are going through a 9-step process of rehabilitating the mind. That's what shamatha is. The 9th stage of shamatha is not super health, it's health. Anything below that, there are problems. At the 9th level, there are no more problems. So that's why it's good to read. Well, that sounds incredible. Read about the 9 stages, and when you get to the 9th stage, sometimes called the 10th stage, all human problems, with the exception of physical illness and eventual death, are gone because the mind is brought into complete fitness. So what are the problems? There are 5 of them. They're called the 5 hindrances. You have a mind that cannot rest because it's craving something pleasurable or pleasant or desirous. So that could be you want a promotion, or you just want a better life, or you want some kind of sensory pleasure, you want a drink, you want a cup of coffee, you just want to get off your meditation cushion and go run in the sun, whatever it is you desire. That's one factor. Another factor is you are in a tormented relationship with something in the world. That's called anger. You can't rest your mind because you're agitated. You have this, so those are 2. One is passion-based and one is anger-based. Then the third is dullness and lethargy. Dullness, sometimes called laziness and lethargy. This is what I'm thinking you are describing, and it can happen to anyone, and it can be a small thing or it could be a big thing. Everyone's different. We all have our particular arrangement of these challenges presenting themselves to us. In the stages of shamatha, we overcome almost all of them by about the 4th or 5th stage, and then we clean out the possibility of the rest in the later stages. But laziness is a stage where we just don't engage completely. It's sort of like we get in the car, we turn on the ignition, but we just don't put it in gear. We just don't. And so the car doesn't move, and we're just there, and we're like, I know it's not good. I know I'm in a car and the motor's on. I know I should put it in gear, but I haven't. That's like laziness. It does not engage with the thing that produces the result. Doing that enough begins to prune the mind of its ability to come up with the energy necessary to engage, and that's called lethargy. So lethargy is a slow dying off of the vitality of the mind to engage in effort for anything. Now, that's an extreme way to talk about it, but we have all experienced this. Like for me, around tax time, laziness has prevented me from getting everything ready. To just file it like all of you do, just file it like, a month before the deadline. And then lethargy sets in where I can't even see the deadline coming. So laziness prevented me from doing the things necessary, and then it tipped over into lethargy where the energy that I had to meet the challenge was not used because of laziness, and now the energy has gone down and the object is just almost unsurmountable, and so I just turn away from it. And then
So this feels more like all the energy is going to the attention to the object, and I'm losing sort of that peripheral awareness.
okay, that's different. So if you are setting your mind, okay, here, imagine that there is a tub of water, and there is an apple in that tub of water, and it's clear. And you're trying to place your mind on that apple. And you need to get closer and closer to see it, but there's a point at which you're able to see it and your face isn't wet. As soon as you get too close to it, you lose any relationship to the room because you're now underwater. Is this making sense? If it's not, I'll just stop here. But placing too closely will bring awareness down. It will suffocate awareness.
So it's like the too tight concept? Or?
It's definitely I don't know if it's too, it probably is too tight. When you place the mind on an object, whether it's a visual object or a physical object or a mental object, you are trying to find the object and place it and then not let the mind move. You are not trying to get down and have single-pointed intention on it because you cannot sustain it. That cannot happen until the final stages of samadhi. And what will happen is you will lose awareness. And awareness is the thing which, after the first three stages of shamatha, awareness is going to be the thing which carries you into the next stages. So you'll develop mindfulness. Early mindfulness is the first three stages. Now the mind is stable. It will always be stable from that point on, but it's kind of dull, it's not very bright, and the mind doesn't feel vivid. It will, though. Mindfulness has been taken care of, so there's stability, and now we're going to bring awareness into the picture, and now there will be vividness, and that's a whole new experience. So you're describing a meditation which lacks peripheral awareness or vividness, and the way the first thought that comes to my mind is that you want to place the mind on the object, you want to aim the mind and then sustain it and use the minimum effective placement. Effective, though, not minimum placement, minimum effective placement. So most of us err on the side of too loose. And so when we tighten up, we just go overboard. So you do want to find the object and then just sustain it. Rather than throwing all of your money at it continually, just give it a nickel and then maybe 2 more pennies. Feed the meter, but be parsimonious. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be shutting down in order to place your mind on the object. But you also don't want to be distracted. There's a balance here. So how was the reading? What are we studying?
The Eightfold.
All right, the Eightfold Noble Path. The Eightfold Noble Path. Now, some people have said that if you only had one teaching of the Buddha, what would it be? And you had to sort of choose. Some people would say, well, obviously cessation of suffering. And other people would say, though, the path. because the path is,
That's the second thing people say,
what?
that there is a path,
So what do you think the first most important thing would be?
there is suffering. That all, the nature of all world is known as suffering.
Wait, so if you only had one teaching of the Buddha, you would choose the teaching that there is suffering?
That would be the first thing I would choose.
And that's, no, I'm saying you only get one. Not you get to choose whichever one is first. You are living in hell and you have one day with the Buddha and you get one fortune cookie with one part of his teachings in it. What would that, and you were just going to take one thing and that was it. One of his, I know, I see you, Laura. You're going to get one of those things. You would choose suffering?
If there's only one thing
Uh-huh.
that I could choose,
Yeah.
I would want to get out of hell.
Okay. And so what would that be?
That would be the,
Okay. All right. Okay. The path.
Yes.
Laura.
That's what I was,
What?
isn't it, well, and isn't,
Well, Laura, she actually,
and isn't in right view and right intention the first part of the Four Noble Truths, isn't like contained within?
isn't, that was that was like ESL there. So let's go back through that one more time.
In the first part of the path. In
Of the Noble Eightfold Truth.
Right.
Yeah, Eightfold Path.
Doesn't it also contain,
Aren't the Four Noble Truths contained in,
right, so you get them,
View.
if you get it.
yeah, where are the Four Noble Truths again? Right livelihood?
Right view.
Where?
Right view.
Right view is the Four Noble Truths. It's not something else. It's the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths contain the path, right? It's the fourth noble truth. But the Eightfold Noble Path contains the Four Noble Truths. It's right view. So the interesting thing is which one does the stuff that gets you liberated? Da-da-da. And it's, which one?
Right intention?
It's the path. Yeah, the Noble Eightfold Path is the doing that brings the result. The Four Noble Truth is the view. And what are you going to do with a view if you don't have a path? Practice of the Buddha's way always is guided with right view. If it's not guided with right view, it's not a path that leads to liberation. It might be a path that leads to some kind of mental health. That's definitely possible, but it might not be leading to liberation. So what our job is tonight is to talk about that. Right view and right intention. So Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. Discipline, concentration, and wisdom. Or you could say discipline, meditation, and wisdom. However you want to translate it. Shila means living your life in such a way where your life begins to tune in to the actual moment-to-moment reality that you're living rather than wandering off and complicating things. Every time you open up Google, you've got algorithms that are stealing your mind away. Is that helping your meditation practice at our level? No. Or, I'm sorry, maybe I should allow you a second. Is it? No. My job is to help us all understand that that does not have our best interest in mind. Shila, it's a way of living our life which values awakening and prioritizes awakening. It doesn't mean don't use bad words. It doesn't mean don't get divorced if you want to get divorced. It doesn't mean be a vegetarian. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It means direct your life because your priority is sanity and awakening. And everything you do in your life can either be pointed to that or not pointed at that. So the more you've prioritized that, the more you are pointing your life in the direction of what you are holding as your highest value, which would be awakening. And that increases as your path develops. You feel that more. So you don't need to start out at the beginning with just a thumping heart of wanting to attain awakenment. That would be artificial. That would just be, it's probably not going to happen that way. It's like when we got our kitten, Taco. I mean, kittens, they're ugly, right? You don't just fall in love with a kitten. I mean, they're But over time, through cleaning the litter box and opening up cans of food, you begin to see that these ugly little things have some kind of special quality. And you're willing to touch them after a while, you know?
You grow hair.
Yeah. Right discipline, or Shila Paramita, is important. After Shila has sort of gathered the energies in our life and helped us point them in the direction of awakening, when we begin to apply our mind in strengthening it, we have set the stage through Shila. Shila makes it so that when we sit down on our meditation cushion, we are ready to go. Vitarka Vichara. Boom. There's no baggage that we have to let down. We haven't been involved in things which are confusing our life. So when we sit down to develop right concentration, the stage is set. We're ready to go. It's just like we're the tourists that get off the plane in the Bahamas. We brought our own flower garlands. And we're already wearing our flip-flops, and we've got our pail and our shovel. Everyone else is schlepping their rollerboards around, not us. We get off on the tarmac and start playing. We're ready. We're ready at a moment's notice, at the drop of a hat. So Shila means that when we have a chance to really train, we are ready. We're ready to go. And then wisdom, prajna, Shila, Samadhi, prajna, means that as soon as our mind is composed, it is ready to split the atom. It's ready to see emptiness. It's ready to see impermanent suffering and egolessness. It's not afraid. It knows what to expect. It has held the view of the Four Noble Truths as its priority for so long that when it sits down, composes itself in samadhi, it's able to see reality right then and there. That's the power of Shila. That's the power of samadhi. And then prajna is what finishes the job. So prajna is what causes enlightenment. Samadhi is what gets us into the realm of prajna. Shila is what enables us to get into the realm of samadhi. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? You're laughing at the Dharma? I'm going to read something to you. The Noble Eightfold Path is the most standard description of the Buddhist way of practice. The Buddha taught it to his first disciples and to his last, as well as to the majority of those in between. It is called noble because when all of its factors come together in a fully developed form, they stand on the threshold to stream entry, the first of the noble or transcendent attainments. So there are two ways of talking about this is called Wings of Awakening. You can get this online probably for free. Tanasaru Bhikkhu, one of the greatest translators of Pali. There are two ways of understanding the Eightfold Noble Path, and they both apply. There is the way of the beginning of the path, which is probably where we are, where we're sort of looking at our life it's sort of like we're assessing a house to find out where exactly the leaks are coming in. We see that there are water stains on the ceiling, but we don't know exactly where the leaks are. That makes sense? Now we need to find where are these leaks. We go up into the attic and we have some way, and then we patch those individual leaks until it's airtight or watertight. How much does intention play into right anything?
Right livelihood.
Well, intention is the third, I believe the second of the Eightfold Noble Path. Right view is its own thing, and that is obviously what we're talking about tonight. Might not seem like it. Right view is necessary for intention to be yoked with something which aims your life toward liberation. So intention, we all have intention in everything we're doing, and that intention is called, karma is intention. They equal. It's an identity. The Buddha said, I tell you, what I call karma is intention. Intention is karma. So when we intend, that's karma. And every moment of our life, karma's coming up and directing our activity, and it has an embedded intention in it. So you don't have to do anything. You can let karma play out, and you will watch the type of karma you have, because it will intend in one direction or another. Probably your intention is not to wake up and become enlightened. Probably your intention is to stay in samsara. So you have to counter that intention with right intention. So you learn right view, and you realize, my God, I've never done a thing in my life that actually intended towards waking up. Everything I do seems to be intended towards staying in samsara. What do I do? What do I do? Easy. You develop the capacity for consciously held intention. That's it. That is the secret sauce of all Dharma. You learn how to intend correctly, not according to what someone else said, but what your assessment has delivered you to, where you realize, this is what I want. It's interesting that all these other people wanted it too, but it really is what I want. I want to wake up. And if I just allow my habitual tendencies to take over, they're always intending that I not wake up. So I can't listen to them anymore. So right after right view, we have right intention. And we learn how to generate whatever comes from right intention, which would be action. Isn't that the third? We have view, intention, then action, and then speech, livelihood. Isn't that what it is? I'm going to look. Oh, for next time, memorize all Dharma. This doesn't seem right. This says view, intention, speech, action. But I guess that could be. To me, view, intention, and action make sense. Intention is what directs your action. Whatever your action is going to be, it's going to be impelled by the intention driving it. I'm not trying to be philosophical, but does that make sense? I mean, let's just think about, if it only kind of makes sense, then we just need more time with it here. What is your intention when you sit down to meditate? And here's the trick. Do you have one? Or are your just habitual intentions participating somewhat reluctantly in this new thing you're doing called meditating? Because that's generally the case. People are meditating without any intention, and they don't know they don't have any intention, because we're never aware of our intention for the most part until we really do have an intention. Like we want, like our mother's having an 85th birthday, and we intend for this to be the most wonderful occasion, and we've taken all the time in the world to reach out to all of her living friends and all that stuff. There's a lot of intention in things like that. Or an intention to get someone out of danger that we know they're in. We're not just habitually doing it. Oh, I guess I'll go, I don't know, I'll just go save these people from this dangerous situation. That doesn't happen. Intention motivates those actions, but those things are rare. For the most part, we're just kind of, I think I'll meditate now. That wasn't a very good session. How was your meditation? I don't know. How could it be anything without intention? In fact, if the intention isn't there, we're waiting on our cushion until someone tells us about intention. That's what we're basically doing. We're sitting on that meditation cushion waiting for Prince Charming or Prince Intention to come into our life. Hey, you look like you're sitting there wasting your time. I think I'm meditating. Really? Why? I gotta go. No, no, no. I don't know. Do you want to wake up? Yeah, that's what it is. I want to wake up. Well, you don't look like you do. Intention is what drives experience to be experienced in a particular direction. Okay, so intention. How much does intention play into it? A lot. As John Cleese would say, a lot.
Well, what's the difference between intention and...
I don't see the microphone.
What's the difference? What's the difference between intention and aspiration?
Oh. Aspiration. Here, I'm going to give you a better than what I can just come up with sort of response. See if I have my...
Oh, I thought you were giving me a sticker.
What's that?
Pin.
Thought I was giving you a what?
Sticker for a good question.
You're getting there. Okay. Intention, cetana, moves the mind to the object and causes it to engage. Aspiration, chanda, causes one to integrate the desired object and serves as the support for initiating exertion. Now, I'm thinking that those may be reversed. Anyway, one of them, have to think about it, because the way people translate those two terms, there are only so many words because they're very similar. Intention is very similar to vitakka, which is where you move the mind towards an object. You intend the mind towards it. Aspiration would be wanting to incorporate something. Like, I want to move my mind. I want to meditate on this path. I want that. And that serves as a basis for action. One is just, and I'm trying to think, aspiration in this case is the wanting to incorporate something enough that then things begin to move in that direction. If I have only a little bit of aspiration, it might not quite move it into action. If I have enough aspiration, then everything starts to mobilize into that. But intention in this particular case is when we're talking at the level of right intention. Intention at this case, right? Anyone have an issue with right? Yeah? Okay. Because right just means assuming that you want to wake up and see reality as it is, then there is a certain view, there is a certain intention, there is a certain action, a certain concentration, and so forth that will accomplish that, and nothing else will. So if I want to drink the coffee out of this, here, it's decaf, by the way. If I want to drink that coffee, there are certain actions which will get that done, and there are an infinite number of actions which won't. So if I tell you, I want to drink that coffee, my intention, my aspiration is to drink that coffee, and here I go, as soon as you see my hand grab this, you're all going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because you can see, well, that's not going to get the job done. That's not right action. If your intention is to drink the coffee, then don't be grabbing that thing. Is this making sense? Yes. So if you want to wake up, if you want to see reality and experience liberation, stream entry, once returner, non-returner, arhat, then you have a specific set of actions that are known to produce that. And then an infinite number of actions that are not known to produce that. That's what right means. That's the way. If you want that result, this is the way. So if you're doing something other than that, you said you wanted to do this, and then you went off in this direction. So that's what it really means. It's not moralistic. It's not about right and wrong, but it sounds that way, of course. Are there any questions before we move into right view and right intention?
In your example, this is very clear. There was not a right action if you want to drink coffee. But when we want to achieve enlightenment, sometimes it's not that clear whatsoever.
Not yet, but it becomes clearer. The more practice you do, the benefit of the path is that it becomes clearer. At first, it's just like when you're driving to the mountains. You say, I want to go to the mountains. You're starting in Illinois. Illinois is flat. I'm going to Colorado because I want to see the mountains. And someone says, you want to see the mountains? Go that way. And they point west. And then you check with someone else. Look, I want to go to the mountains of Colorado, and that person told me to go that way. Is that right? And they'll say, yeah, that way. Well, you're driving that way. Do you see any mountains when you're in Illinois? You're just like, oh, well, it says whatever, 25 west or whatever. Maybe I'll just keep going. That's not the highway, is it? 70? I don't know. It doesn't matter. What?
Exactly. So you don't know what's
Not yet, you don't. Not yet.
Yeah.
But as you get to a certain point, something happens on the horizon, and you go, and what is that something? You see what must be mountains. They don't look like trees. They're way off in the distance, but I think it's right. I think those are mountains. And as you get closer and closer and closer, what happens to that experience? Clearer. It's bigger. It's like we are very clearly headed to the mountains now. So the path is the same way. There are even words that describe the initial seeing it off in the distance. Let's see, there's heat, peak, forbearance, and supreme of the mundane. So the first moment where you, I think, land ho, that kind of thing. You're not certain they're mountains yet, but those look like those must be mountains. And then you start to see, yeah, this is definitely looking like those are mountains. And then at a certain point, those are the mountains. That's stream entry. So it's not clear at the beginning of the path. And so the thing that guides you is conviction, that you're headed in the right direction. And the thing that builds conviction is that you trust the people who shared the path with you, that they did not deceive you. In some traditions, the first moment of enlightenment is paired with the exclamation, they did not deceive me. So when someone achieves the first bhumi in the Mahayana or stream entry, this is just a traditional way of writing it. The first thing they say is, I have not been deceived. You've put all these years trusting these people telling you that if you keep doing this, you will come to this life-changing thing. And you don't know. I mean, you're doing a lot of this. Everyone else is raking in the money. They're piling silks and brocades on. They've got a big old stack of potatoes. And you are just doing this. And you're wondering, is there anything going to happen? But if you have right intention, right view, and all that kind of thing, right samadhi, you're moving in that direction. And as soon as you get a sense that, whoa, things are starting to change, that's called heat. You're starting to feel the warmth of your practice. Tru is the word in Tibetan. You're starting to feel like, oh my God, something is definitely changing. Just a week ago, I didn't even feel this, but things are changing. It hasn't changed yet, but it's beginning to. Then you practice a little bit more, and you begin to feel like, I am headed for something, aren't I? And that's called heat peak. You're coming to the peak of experience. Anything after this is clearly going to be life-changing. And then there are two more stages. One is forbearance. It takes a little longer than you thought it was, and so you have to forbear. And then supreme of the mundane, which is a beautiful way of saying the last point of ordinary consciousness before stream entry. You reach this point where, oh my God, Kristen Wiig, she comes out of, and she goes, oh my God, that's what our generations say. And then boom, you see selflessness. And the first thing you say is, they didn't lie to me all these years doing this, and I'm here. And then she still, oh my God, you can't get her to stop. That's a problem with living in this modern context.
That's gonna come up. I'm gonna get enlightenment and she's gonna
Yep.
be there.
Yeah, I would welcome her if she was going to be the harbinger of enlightenment.
Like all the way to level one again.
What's really important is that people understand that it is all up to you, and the Buddha cannot help, and the teachers cannot help. They can only give you the information you need and show you the techniques. It's entirely up to us individually. And the way we do it, we imagine, for example, you can either use a 3 or an 8 model, but let's just use the Eightfold Path. You are a lute, and you have 8 strings, and the lute is not in tune. And when this lute is in tune, and you drag your thumb across that lute, it will be the sound of stream entry. Those 8 strings are all out of tune, and you want to tune each one of those until they're right. And when you get it, that's what happens when we practice the Eightfold Path. When we bring the Eightfold Path into a certain harmony, we have stream entry.